Welcome to our presentation about innovative technologies supporting data collection and public awareness for enhancing ecosystem-based management. My name is Ioannis Giovos. I'm a fisheries biologist and the fisheries director of IC, an environmental organization based in Thessaloniki, Greece. In this presentation, we will discuss about innovative methodologies for mapping ecosystems, species of interest, or activities regarding the marine ecosystem. We will complement our discussion with case studies on alien species in Greece and Cyprus, on angel sharks in the Mediterranean, on guitar fish in Greece, and on recreational fisheries in the Mediterranean based on the latest work of IC. To support ecosystem-based management, we need continuous and high-quality data. These data are normally collected through traditional research methodologies, such as vessel-based surveys or underwater visual sensors. However, this is not always possible due to various constraints. New emerging technologies can complement traditional research and provide additional information with low cost. These new technologies, once integrated with traditional research methods, but also with citizen science, can provide big data. Such technologies are smartphones and crowdsourcing applications, social media, remote sensing and satellite tracking, or other possible technologies. All these methods have recently become better, faster, less intrusive, and cheaper. However, we must always keep in mind that such tools are complementary, and traditional research must be always applied. Once such tools involve citizens in the context of citizen science, data collection can increase dramatically. Citizens are always out there. There are many more than scientists, and they supposedly work on different days, different hours, different months in different areas. They can cover a much more extended. They have a much more extended spatial coverage, but also they can provide many more data than scientists. Here is the example of iNaturalist, an application created by California Academy of Science and National Geographic. Currently in the platform, there are more than 20 million observations provided by citizens or even scientists. However, it's important to keep in mind that depending on the approach that the citizen science project and a tool is used, big data can come with a big cost. This cost can be low quality and uncertainty. There is always the question about the credibility of the data. Therefore, it is important scientists to follow citizen science projects and also all these tools, especially crowdsourcing applications, and somehow to validate the recorded data. It's also important to notice that the involvement of non-scientists in data collection not only provide data, but also works for raising their awareness. But we will discuss about it later on this presentation. Here we start with the first example, is the monitoring of alien species in the Eastern Mediterranean. As you all know, Mediterranean is an enclosed basin with 2.5 million square kilometers of area in the subtropical zone and is considered an hotspot for the biodiversity in the Mediterranean. Currently is facing a severe invasion of alien species with more than 1,000 alien species being recorded so far. In order to continue recording this influx, is required continuous monitoring, which needs a large number of scientists, vessel-based surveys, and other methodologies that are extremely costly, especially given the extended coastline of the region. In 2016, in IC, we started the citizen science project Is It Alien to You, Share It. In 2017, we created a Facebook group, and we're calling for observations of alien species or species that people cannot identify. The group has currently 7,000 members, which are non-scientists, citizen scientists, or scientists themselves that they interact with the citizens regarding the observations. In the 2 years of the Facebook group, we managed to collect more than 2,000 unique observations of alien species, of more than 90 different alien species, and we managed to record for the first time 4 new alien species in the Mediterranean and 3 new alien species for the Greek waters. Here you can see the map of the observations, the latest update. You will also notice that we have observations from Cyprus, Albania and Italy. And this brings us to our second example about angel sharks in the Mediterranean. Angel sharks is the most threatened family of elasmobranchs in the basin and the second most threatened family globally. The species are protected and they suffer a severe decline in their population and several local extinctions around the Mediterranean. We have only 3 species within the basin: Squatina squatina, Squatina oculata, and Squatina coelata. And until recently, the last 50 years, we had only 5 observations of all these 3 species within the basin. Trying to learn more about these highly threatened species, we collaborated with colleagues from Libya and Italy, that they also run citizen science projects which are based on social media. And what we actually did is we created posts asking for information about the species and pictures if available. Several organizations and Facebook accounts reposted this post, trying also to help us to collect more information. All this work resulted in collecting 14 new observations of all species, and together with the existing bibliography, but also with questionnaires of sea users, we managed to identify potentially critical areas for the species within the basin. Also, in the context of this work, we confirmed for the first time the occurrence of all 3 angel shark species in the Greek waters. As you can see, the Gulf of Sirte in Libya has many observations, and through this work we managed to understand how important is the area, and now we keep collecting information about the species in this area. However, social media and social media platforms are not only important for monitoring species, but also for monitoring activities or creating profile of activities that data scarce. Here is the third example. In this work, what we actually did is that we used social media to create a profile for recreational activities, for recreational fisheries, an activity that lacks information within the Mediterranean. Recreational fishing is defined as any fishing activity not conducted for commercial purposes. It is estimated that more than 10% of the EU population participates in recreational fishing, and this activity has significant socioeconomic benefits for local and national economies. But also, given the large amount of people involved, potentially large impact in the fish stocks, especially in the Mediterranean, that we know the situation of the fish stock is really hard. It's important to learn more about this activity and how it potentially affects the Mediterranean stocks. What we did for this work was to collect videos exclusively from YouTube, analyzing these videos, recording the fish species captured by different recreational fishing techniques within all the EU Mediterranean countries, with the goal to create a profile about the activity, about the different types of recreational fisheries in different EU countries in the Mediterranean, and also to provide future guidance for research. We end up having all this information. In the first table, you can see the percentages of species, of different species, captured by recreational fishers posting their videos on YouTube in these countries. These are all the EU Mediterranean countries. In the second table, you can see the percentage of contribution of each species in different fishing techniques, recreational fishing techniques in all Mediterranean countries, aggregated EU Mediterranean countries. And in the last figure, you can see the percentage of videos utilizing different fishing techniques per country. So actually this map shows the most common recreational fishing technique in the different countries. Last, we have the example of guitar fish in Greece. So in the Mediterranean Sea, we can find two different species of guitar fish, Rhinobatos rhinobatos and Glaucosteus semiculus. Both species are listed as endangered in the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species for the Mediterranean population, and the species are also protected within the Mediterranean based on the GFCM. In the Greek waters, we have Rhinobatos rhinobatos, which is characterized as rare due to the scarcity of data that we have, which is suspected to be possibly extinct from the Aegean, as well as from the whole north of the Mediterranean, while Glaucosteus semiculus has been characterized as poorly understood, with the reports from the Aegean being extremely limited. Actually, this paper of Corsini Foca is based on a specimen found in a museum collection. We followed again the same procedure as before. We have these Facebook groups on Facebook, which are actually part of our citizen science project, the alien species and the sharks and rays in Greece and Cyprus. And we've been posting posts asking for information about these species on Facebook, on both Facebook groups. We managed to collect 9 new observations of both species, 2 of Rhinobatos rhinobatos and 5 of Glaucosteus semiculus, while 2 observations were identified as guitarfish, but it was not possible to identify them to the genus level. This work confirms the existence of Rhinobatos rhinobatos in the Greek waters, and also aggregated with existing bibliography and also with data collected through local ecological knowledge of fishermen and other sea users as divers, we managed to identify potentially critical areas for the species in the basin. And the cost of this work was extremely low because we were mostly based on social media. So actually the cost for such type of work was only the hours spent by the personnel to conduct this research, to gather the information, to create the database, to collect the observations, and then create the papers. While if we had to invest on traditional research, we will have to spend time in these areas and do field surveys. Also is almost impossible for someone that is not trained to see a guitar fish in the water. So as you can see, there are potential advantages and disadvantages. However, we must say that these are only initial data, and it definitely needs traditional research surveys to visit the field and confirm the presence of these species in these critical areas. So here you see a map. We have all the existing bibliography with a star, and then the citizen science records with yellow. And then we performed also interviews in selected users. You will see that we performed interviews almost all over Greece to understand if there are other areas that we don't have observations through citizen science, but still people declare that they see guitarfish. And all this information gave us led us to identify potentially critical areas, the two red areas that you can see in the map. However, citizen science, as we said before, and all these new technologies not only help us to collect data, but through this citizen science project and through the Facebook group, the social media group that we have, we managed to train fishers to collect proper data. So you will see here that a fisherman records all the information about us, the length of the specimens or so, but then we also train them how to safe release the fish back in the sea, which is extremely important when a species is as endangered as guitarfish. So this brings us to the next slide that we will discuss on how important is citizen science and all these innovative technologies such as social media or crowdsourcing applications for training fishermen and training people and raise their awareness towards conservation policies, protected species, and all this stuff. So by involving citizens in research, they learn new skills. Definitely is good for everybody participating. Of course, we educate them and we raise their awareness regarding environmental problems. I mean, citizen science is not only for detecting species or creating profile of an activity, but people can also collect data on atmospheric air and other types of data or critical habitats like Posidonia oceanica and many other stuff. And we also somehow try to involve them in decision making, especially if we explain them that the data that they collect will be part of the decision making process in the future. Of course, the latter increase the social license of environmental policies and contribute to the law enforcement through a bottom-up approach, which is extremely important within the Mediterranean basin. So citizen science and all these emerging technologies that support primarily citizen science and end up in big data collection is transforming research and at the same time is raising public awareness towards the most important environmental issues. And here you will see an interesting article in Nature. I suggest you all to have a look at it later on. Here you will see the most significant bibliography referred within the presentation. And I would like to thank you all for staying with us and following this interesting, I hope, presentation. Thank you so much.